So as you know, of course, this is a CPD approved training program. And since most of you are already familiar about the CPD program and the method that I deliver these webinars, I'm just going to go over it. As you know, these webinars, they intend to basically give you the competence and also the knowledge to actually apply these concepts in real life, in your own organizations and so on. So that is the main focus of this training program. So as you know, these webinars, I'm going to be giving you examples in this webinar on basically to give you an overview, how does it look like and how to do it properly. So I'm going to focus mainly, okay, in this webinar, I'm going to focus on the internal audit checklist. We are going to look at the red flags, the observations, and we are also going to look at the audit plan. And I'm also going to focus on the audit reporting plus the non-conformance report. These are the areas that you really have to record as you go over through your audits, and that is going to become part of your auditing, records in your editing activities. As you know, these are all, case studies and basically documented information that I'm going to be using so that at least I can explain and also show you what exactly we're talking about. So all of these documents that you see on the screen right now, I'm going to be using them throughout the webinar so that at least I can give you something with substance, okay? Something that you can really attach the concept on so that you can practice these. And in today's webinar, I'm going to be using a case study for a facilities utilities company here in Dubai. This is a company called Dewa. They use an integrated management system. And basically, I'm going to show you how the integrated management system audits are conducted in this company. And you can also, try to do that in your own organization. So I'm going to be using a case study for their solar panel connection. Okay, it's a very good case study, and it's basically going to show you what to do and where exactly I'm going to conduct an audit. And also, I'm going to be using their integrated management system policy, which is going to help us to write audit findings and recommendations and so on. At the end of this webinar, I'm going to give you two links in the blog. This is basically the blog to explain the risk-based thinking in ISO management systems, and everything that you're going to do in this webinar, I'm going to summarize it in this blog right here. 7 steps to conduct an audit for IMS. That's all what you need to do. So that is it, ladies and gentlemen. And as you can see, the PowerPoint presentation, it's only 15 pages. I'm just going to go through the steps to conduct an audit. So as you can expect, we hope to be done here in about 60 to 90 minutes. Everything is going to be done. But before I introduce myself and before we get started, I just want to let you know that, when it comes to integrated management systems, please make sure that, the explanations or the information, whatever that you need to know about what is an integrated management system and how does it work, please make sure that you get it from the official ISO website, okay? Because apparently integrated management system audits, they mean different things to different people. So let us just be assured that we all use the official way, which is the verified information and basically things that are basically work in real life. So this is basically the blog that I'd recommend you to always verify and check everything or anything everybody tells you about integrated management system standards. Okay, so this is a handbook that I'd really recommend you to get. And also this handbook is also provided alongside your course bundle and and your notes like that. This is an ISO handbook. It's about 120 pages. Basically, it consists of case studies, and explanations about how to use an integrated management system, which was published by ISO, of course, with the response to a lot of non-conformities and basically misconception in integrated management system. So this is basically for you to be rest assured that, whatever that you're talking about here, it is verified information. And you also, I'd recommend you to do any cross-reference because as part of research and so on in these webinars, I actually see a lot of wrong information on the internet, especially about what exactly is an integrated management system. And probably you might consume the wrong information, which might actually be detrimental to you. So that is what I'm going to do at the beginning of the webinar. At the beginning of the webinar, I'm going to explain to you explicitly what is an integrated management system. And I'm also going to show you how does it work in real life. And then after that, I'm going to give you as many examples as possible right here. And then we'll go into the 7 steps of conducting an audit until we are done. All right. So that's it, ladies and gentlemen. And as part of your CPD activities, this is basically what you are going to learn. Okay. In this webinar, this is what you can expect. And this is basically going to contribute to your CPD points and also your CPD record. And all of these learning activities, I'm going to be giving you examples. Okay. I might be talking too fast at some point in the webinar. That is okay. When you see me talking too fast, basically it's one of those points that are not really much important, but on aspects which are really important to your learning, I'm going to slow down, I promise. And I'm also going to give you an example plus a case study on all of these activities right here. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, once again, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. So let us now get into it. So today I'm going to show you how to conduct an audit for an integrated management system. And I'm going to focus on ISO 914 and 45, which is basically the quality, quality management, environmental, and also safety management. I'm going to walk you through, okay, from the point where you have to plan an audit, execute an audit, and also report and to follow up on those combined audits. So once again, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for taking time to attend this webinar. Thank you so much for those who are attending this webinar for the third and the fourth time. We really appreciate your participation, and you really have put us on the map because our webinars, they're becoming so popular. We are referring a lot of people to our webinars. So thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And in return, of course, I'm going to show you all what I know about conducting audits, my own experience conducting audits, and hopefully that is also going to help you and prepare so that you can also conduct an audit. Okay. So what we're going to do right now, I'm now going to start off with, I'm going to start off now with what exactly is an integrated management system, and then how does it work, okay? So when it comes to integrated management systems, as I've told you, basically this is the area that you really have to worry a lot about, because most of the times I've told you, the standards or whatever that is called integrated, it is usually in the collection of standards rather than pure integration. So I'm going to use the definition right here on the screen, the official definition from ISO, to actually show you what exactly is an integrated management system and also how exactly is it used. So an integrated management system, according to definition, it integrates all of an organization systems and processes into one complete framework to enable you to work as a single unit with unified objectives to achieve your purpose and mission. So what exactly does that mean? So let us now break down this definition so that you can really understand what is an integrated management system. So the integrated management system, for starters, this is basically a method that is applied to processes. That is the first thing you have to know. When we are talking of integrated management system, this only focuses on processes. This can be your product relation process, or it can be your service relation process, or your customer journey in your organization. So integrated management systems, this is applied basically to what? To a process. For example, this is a process to connect a solar panel at your house. In Dubai, if you want a solar panel at your home or at your residence, these are the 4 stages that you go through. So this is an example where we are going to apply, or where integrated management systems is applied. So the process, basically, it can be represented like this. As you can see, there are different stages within the process, and also you in your organization, you might have a similar, more or less process like this, from step number 1 to step number 7, or 1 to 10, like that. So this is basically where the process is applied. So according to a definition now, an integrated management system, it integrates all of your systems into one complete framework to enable your organization to work as a single unit with unified objectives. So the first part of the definition, it says you are going to integrate all, okay, of your organization systems and processes. What exactly are these what are these systems and processes that you're talking about? When you say organization systems and processes, what exactly are you talking about? What exactly is being integrated? Well, what that means, ladies and gentlemen, is that if you look at a process like this, okay, or the process that you have in your organization, there are certain arrangements, there are certain procedures, okay, that exist within that process. For example, right here, you can see that in an organization, there can be arrangements or processes, what you do, okay, within that process to help work become more efficient and to reduce product failures, okay? That is an example of one of those systems or that process. In an organization, you can also have a process to help you reduce environmental impact and to become more sustainable. That is an example of an organization system or an organization process. And you might also have a system or a process to help you reduce workplace accidents in the what? In the workplace. So basically, this is what you're going to see in every process flow like this. So for example, in this organization right here, there exist three arrangements. There are arrangements to help work to become more efficient. There are arrangements to help to reduce environmental impact, and there are basically arrangements to reduce workplace accidents. So this is what is going to be integrated. You integrate actually the procedures, the arrangements, or the systems that exist in the organization to achieve these intended outcomes. And then now it goes into say those organization processes, they are going to be integrated into one complete framework. Okay, so what exactly is this one complete framework? Well, it means that, instead of having 1, 2, 3, i.e., quality, safety, and environmental arrangements, ISO 9, 14, and 45, we are going to have one complete framework, and that is called the what? That is called the Annex SO. So the Annex SO, ladies and gentlemen, it is basically a framework for integration. This is now what is used to combine these three different arrangements, these three different systems into one complete framework so that you can form an integrated management system. So if someone is going to ask you, how exactly can I integrate? What happens during integration? So during integration, you are going to take your organization systems and processes for safety, quality, and environment, those separate systems, and you are going to have them all into one complete framework. So basically, integrated management system, it's all about taking quality, safety, and environment, and then you use your Annex SL to integrate that. So to help you, to show you now how exactly that happens, I have to take you back to 2011. Back in 2011, ISO, they published this white paper that you can see right here. ISO, they suggested that over the years, we've published many management standards for topics ranging from quality, environment, information security, business continuity management, and so on. But despite sharing common elements, all the ISO standards back in 2011, they had different structures. This in turn resulted in some confusion and difficulties at the implementation stages. And then they said most organizations have more than one management standards to implement and certify. Implementing and certifying individual standards takes up a lot of time and resources. So there's a clear need to find a way of integrating and combining standards in the best way possible. And in order to address this problem of integration, ISO developed the Annex SL. So this Annex SL, ladies and gentlemen, it is a way of integrating and combining standards. And that is why it is called a single framework. It is going to combine your different systems, i.e., quality, safety, and environment systems, i.e., different processes, quality, safety, and environment processes into one complete framework, which is called the Annex SL. And it works as a single unit with unified objectives to achieve your purpose and mission. So that is exactly what you're going to see. And when you look at how is this going to affect organizations, they clearly say management system auditors will now have to use a core set of generic requirements across the different industries and disciplines like that. So that is basically what an integrated management system is. So an integrated management system, if it is being applied in real life, it means that you are going to identify a process like this. And in this process now, you are going to combine all the different processes, or you are going to combine all the different systems for quality, safety, and environment into one complete framework. It means that all the quality, safety, and environmental issues or the risks here, they are going to be managed by using the Annex SL. So that is exactly what we are going to do. So if the Annex SL, okay, when you are using the Annex SL, it means that all the different management standards in an organization, you are going to have systems and processes for quality, safety, environment, compliance, information security, and so on. All of them, they are going to be combined into one complete framework, which is called the IMS. And that is what you have to know about the integrated management system and how basically it works. So what I'm going to do right now, I'm now going to put it up a little bit a notch, okay? I'm now going to show you how exactly an integrated management system can be used in an organization like this. At this point now, I'm going to give you an example how an organization like this, how exactly can they want, how can they integrate their systems into one complete framework, and how can they work as a single unit to achieve their unified purpose and mission. So that is what I'm going to show you right here. So what basically happens in an organization like this, you identify the product or the service selection process, and then you now have to determine the inputs, okay? These are basically the risks. What are risks? These are the threats and opportunities to your objectives. So the threats now to your quality systems, to your quality processes, or to your quality objectives is lack of staff. Your threat to your health and safety objectives, that is poor safety culture. And then your threat to environmental objectives, that can be lack of awareness. And then what are your opportunities? That means what can help you to achieve those quality safety objectives. What can help you to achieve ISO 914 and 45001 objectives? That can be streamlining the process, can help you with quality objectives. Competent supervision can help you to reduce workplace accidents, and preparing a legal register can help you to address your aspects and impacts, okay, in an organization. That are your environmental objectives. So this is basically what you need to do. For every process that you're going to apply an integrated management system standard, okay, you need to identify what are the threats and opportunities to that process. And then you are going to take the Annex SL. The Annex SL now, it is going to work as a framework, okay? So you understand what are we doing here. Instead of having three separate systems, we might be having a system to address the threat of lack of staff and also the opportunities of streamlining the process, poor safety culture and content supervision, lack of awareness and preparing a legal register. Then that is basically what we are now going to have one complete framework, which we are looking at right now on the screen, and that is going to be the process. So the Annex SL is going to provide you with a set of what you call generic requirements, generic or what you call goal setting requirements to help you to plan basically how to manage this risk, to implement your plan to mitigate the risk, monitor risk management using planned actions, and then also act to implement any changes to your approach. Okay, this is what the Annex SO is going to do so that you can achieve zero customer complaints, zero injuries, and also 100% legal compliance in your processes. So in other words, now what we are saying here is that through the Annex SL, this is now what is going to happen. The process in your organization is going to be here, okay? In your organization now, you are going to have the different threats, risk to your processes, and then your process is going to come over here, and whereby you are going to do your plan, do check and then the Annex SO, and then you are now going to have these objectives like that. So this is in a nutshell how an integrated management system works. It's very important for you as an auditor to never get it wrong about how exactly an integrated management system should work, because that is basically the foundation of conducting an audit, okay, which I'm going to give you the auditing equation right now. So this is basically what you see in an organization. And in an organization, when they are integrating management systems properly, they are going to use Annex SL as a set of procedures they need to follow in order to meet their objectives. They are going to use Annex SL as a model to follow when they are setting up and operating a management system. So that is what true integration is. Anything other than that, it can just be a collection of standards which does not do any good whatsoever to you. An integrated management system, we apply it to processes so that instead of using separate systems, okay, for quality, safety, and environment, we are going to use the Annex SL basically to do the job of three using one framework. So that is basically how it works. So that being said, now let us now look at the auditing equation and what exactly do you have to do. So when you're going to conduct an audit for an integrated management system, the main thing that you have to do, you have to gather the audit evidence of conformance, consistency, and continual improvement. These are the three factors that are going to determine whether or not the organization has got a capability to meet its intended outcomes. So these are the three areas that you need to know. And for you to understand what is the evidence of conformance, consistency, and continual improvement, of course, you have to have a profound understanding of how does this thing work. So that is exactly what I'm going to show you right now. So here is now the auditing equation, and then please make sure that you are going to follow through it with me. So right now, what I've done, I've basically I showed you how an integrated management system can be applied to an organization. So in every organization, the other way, or I can explain this in another way that you'd like to understand, what you can do, but the first step number one, is to identify a process, okay? Which process exactly are you going to be using the IMS? And in this case, we said this is basically the process that we have identified. So no problem. Step number two, you now look at what exactly do you expect from that process. Okay, what do you want? What are the intended outcomes at the end at step number 7? So you can say, would like to become more efficient, would like to reduce environmental impacts, and would like to reduce accidents in the workplace. So these are going to become your objectives right here. And then you are going to look at, okay, what are the threats, okay, i.e., what can prevent us from achieving these objectives? And then also, what are the opportunities? What can help us to achieve these objectives? And then after that, now you are now going to go to the Annex SL to follow guidance on how to plan, do, check, and act. So that is basically what an Annex SL is. This Annex SL, ladies and gentlemen, it consists of what we call the goal setting requirements. These are the goals you're expected to meet at the different clauses like that. If you meet these goals right here, then you are basically following a model that is used to integrate these ISO standards. So that is exactly what you're going to do. So right here now, we are now going to start off with the evidence of conformance. What does it mean and why do you need to gather this evidence when you're conducting an audit here? So the evidence of conformity, what it means now, it means that, the first piece of evidence is basically to determine whether or not the organization meets the goal setting requirement of the Annex SL. That means as an auditor, we are going to gather evidence on leadership commitment, identification of risk, creation of a plan to address the risk, and so on and so on. Okay. Basically, what you're going to do, evidence of conformity, it means that we want to determine if this statement is true. If this statement is true, okay, that means if I'm going to conduct an audit right here, okay, I need to determine whether or not this statement is true. Okay, is this statement true? These are basically called the generic requirements, which are the goal setting requirements in Annex SL. So that is basically what we call the evidence of conformity. And the evidence of conformity, it is actually part of this process. The second part of audit evidence is called the evidence of consistency. Evidence of consistency, ladies and gentlemen, what it means is that there should be a relationship or consistency between these outputs and basically these inputs, i.e., consistency means that for an organization to have zero injuries, it should be because of addressing safety culture and also implementing compliance supervision. For you to have 100% legal compliance should be because of having a legal register and also improving awareness. For you to have zero customer complaints should be addressing lack of staff and also streamlining the process. That is called the evidence of consistency. And then there's the evidence of continual improvement. Evidence of continual improvement, okay, I think it does not mean, okay, I think, it does not mean if you have got 2 customer complaints this year and the next quarter you've got 1 customer complaint, then that is continual improvement. Or last year you had 10 injuries, this year you have got 2 injuries, that is compliant, that is continual improvement. No, it does not work like that. The evidence of continual improvement, basically this is tied to risk management. Continual improvement in the sense that, let's say in December last year, we had these threats and these opportunities not being implemented. This was the state of affair, but right now we are in March. Instead of having these threats and opportunities, we have managed them and they are basically intended outcomes. So continual improvement, basically it means that addressing the threats and opportunities into intended outcomes. Continual improvement, it means that turning these reds into these greens. So those are the three forms of audit evidence that you have to gather for your IMS, okay? In an integrated management system, that is basically what you have to do. So in an integrated management system and auditor, you have to gather evidence of conformity, consistency, and continual improvement. Again, coming back to the example right here, if I'm going to conduct an audit in this, let's say this is the organization, there what they've said, okay, can you conduct an integrated management system audit for us? What exactly do I need to know here? The first thing that I'm going to ask Dewa is, what exactly are your intended outcomes? Okay, what do you want to achieve in this process? In other words, you have to request the organization to interpret to you, what does this mean to them? Okay, I'm going to ask Dewa, okay, the first thing, can you tell me, help me, can you please explain to me, what does it mean to have work that is efficient and basically reducing product failures? What does this statement mean to you? What does this statement mean to you? What exactly do these statements mean to you? So they are going to give you something like this, which is called an integrated management system policy statement of intent. Ladies and gentlemen, what you see right here in the policy statement of intent, this is basically an expanded version, a customized explanation of what does this mean to the process. So what you're looking at right here in this integrated management system policy statement, these are all the objectives. This is what they wish to happen when this process is being conducted. From step number 1 to step number 7, at a primary level, they want this to happen. From step number 1 to step number 7, at a secondary level, this is what they need to happen. So that is going to be my first attempt as an auditor. The next thing, I'm now going to say, okay, fine. I'm going to gather evidence of conformity, consistency, and continual improvement so that I can determine whether or not the current arrangements in this process, are you capable of meeting these intended outcomes? Are you actually capable of meeting these intended outcomes? And that is why you conduct IMS audits. IMS audit, basically you conduct them to determine the capability of the organization to achieve these intended outcomes. So basically, I'm going to gather the evidence of conformity, consistency, and continual improvement so that I can do that. So that is exactly what we are going to do in this webinar. So the first concept now, everything that I've been saying, this is basically called the risk-based thinking in ISO management standards. And I'm going to give you the link of this blog at the end of the webinar. This is going to further explain the concept of true integration and basically how does it work. So that being said, now at this point, I expect you to see as an auditor to understand what are the inputs into an integrated management system, what is the process, and then what are the outputs. So let me now repeat one more time before we proceed. So in an integrated management system, as an auditor, you understand what are the outputs in an integrated management system. The outputs in an integrated management system is basically to help work become more efficient, to reduce environmental impacts, and to reduce basically workplace accidents like that. These are called the outputs, and you can see that all of these three things right here, they can basically be explained as this, okay? So that is number one. Number two, what are the inputs into an integrated management system? The inputs into an integrated management system are the threats and the opportunities. The threats, i.e., meaning what can prevent the organization to achieve this? Those are the threats. And the opportunities, what can an organization do to achieve these intended outcomes? And then the last aspect is now the process. The process in an IMS, it is basically the what? It is the Annex SL. Annex SL is a way of integrating and combining standards. An Annex SL is a set of procedures an organization needs to follow in order to meet its objectives. What are these objectives? These are the objectives you're talking about. What are these objectives that you're talking about here? These are the objectives that you're talking about right here. So in order for you to achieve these objectives, in order for you to achieve all of these objectives that you're looking at right here, these are basically the intended outcomes of the objectives. The organization can follow these set of procedures so that they need to follow. They can actually have a model to follow when they are setting up and operating an management system. So basically, this is what you have. And again, ladies and gentlemen, before we proceed here, make sure that you get hold of this management system, and basically you just have to read an extra on this case like that. Okay, so this is another blog from the ISO website that I'm also going to leave you through when they say the guidance on integrated management system is just been updated. This is basically going to help you to have another view in is going also to have another view in integrated management systems. So as you're going to see in this webinar, the concept of integrated management systems, that is probably the most complex part. When it comes to conduct an audit, it is very simple, okay? So when you're going to conduct an audit, the steps for performing an IMS audit, what exactly are you doing here? What is the main idea behind conducting an IMS audit? When you're conducting an IMS audit, ladies and gentlemen, it is very simple. Your job as an IMS auditor is to determine the capability of the organization to achieve these intended outcomes, okay? And then you are going to gather evidence, you are going to look at the process where those objectives should be achieved, and then you're going to gather evidence of conformity, consistency, and continual improvement. Look, the idea here is very simple, right? What do we have here? What we have here, ladies and gentlemen, we have a set of procedures an organization needs to follow in order to meet its objectives. So you're going to ask, what exactly are the objectives here? And the objectives, you're going to get them in the IMS policy statement. So when you see any policy statement in an organization, those are the objectives. For you as an auditor here in IMS, you have a job to determine whether or not the procedures, the international recognized benchmark is being followed in order to meet those objectives. It is as simple as that. Your job here is basically to see that whether or not, yes or no, if the organization is following these procedures in order to meet its objectives. What are these set of procedures? This is what you see here as the goal-setting requirements in the Annex SL. So that is exactly what you are going to do. So for you also, when you are going to be conducting an audit, okay, this is exactly what you need to do. You get hold of the organization's IMS policy statement of intent, and then you also request for the process flow where they need to achieve those objectives. And then you are going to gather the evidence of conformity, consistency, and continual improvement so that you can inform the organization if they are capable of moving from this red zone into this green zone, and that's all what you need to do, as simple as it can be, okay? So these are now the 7 steps now for conducting that audit. And remember, when you are performing in an IMS audit, you are basically looking for evidence to determine what they've said in the policy statement of intent, can they actually achieve it, okay? So we are going to start off with the documented information review. Now, in documented information review, what you are going to be doing here, you need to basically look for evidence of conformity, okay? And also you need to understand the context of the organization so that you can customize the audit plan, and also so that you can get to know the type of threats and opportunities that exist in the organization. And then you are also going to create, okay, an internal audit checklist, which consists of questions or what you need to do when you're conducting an audit, okay? Basically, your audit checklist is going to consist of the questions you're going to ask, the documents you're going to review, and also what you're going to observe, all right? And then you're going to write an internal audit plan informing the auditees about exactly how to conduct that audit, how the audit is going to be conducted. And then you're going to gather the audit evidence, you compare to the audit criteria so that you can determine the audit findings. and then you are going to write and record your audit activities and your audit findings in an audit report, and then you are going to request the organization to follow up those findings. So this is basically what you need to do in an audit, and let us now get into it. So the first step, as we said, is documented information review. So what exactly is the purpose of documented information? So documented information now, okay, it is the same thing as what is happening right here. So as you can see, these are basically footprints, okay? These are footprints at the beach, and these are the footprints in the sand. This is a form of documented information. And that is what you're doing in step number 1. What kind of information is documented here? The information documented here is basically information that there's someone, okay, this was a human being that walked through here, not a cat, not a dog, okay, and you are sure that this person, it was a single person, and he did not walk to the right or left, but it was right here. This is information documented in form of footprints. You can be so sure that, this is what happened based on the evidence that has been left behind. Okay, so that is exactly what you are doing right here in the first stage. Documented information review, you are looking for the footprints to determine whether or not these goals have been done. These are basically called the goal setting requirements. And these goal setting requirements, or these sections that you see right here, this is basically these are the ones, those are the set of procedures that an organization needs to follow. So when you are basically looking for these footprints, when you are doing your documented information review, you basically want to confirm, is there evidence? Can I see the footprints that these sets of procedures under clause 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 have they been followed? So that is the first step in an audit. And also, you also need to determine what are exactly the type of threats and opportunities in an organization. For documented information review, you are looking for the footprints, you are looking for evidence, you are looking for objective evidence to check whether the set of procedures, policies and procedures, are they actually compliant with IMS and the requirements from other interested parties. You are basically looking for those generic, or you're basically looking for evidence of the Annex SL clause requirements being done. And then the second thing now, after documented information review, this is going to help you to get to know the organization better and also prepare the audit checklist and the audit plan. Before I show you which documents to request, when I say to get to know the company better, I'm talking about this section. These threats and opportunities, they are going to be revealed after requesting for documented information. When you request for documented information, these documents I'm going to show you, you are going to understand the type of threats and opportunity an organization faces, and that is exactly what you need to do here. So when you are doing your documented information review, you are basically looking for two things as an auditor, okay? You are looking for and you look at, all right? So you just scroll down right here, and then you go to this section. More specifically, as an auditor, this is what you're looking for. So you look for, does the documented system respond to the IMS, okay, the Annex SL? Do the procedures describe what is happening? Is the documentation controlled? Are all employees informed? Are the procedures followed by everyone all the time? And is there objective evidence that these procedures are being followed? Okay, this is basically what you're looking for. And then you look at these documents right here. Okay, so these are now the documents that you're going to be looking at. And as you can see, all of these documents right here, they are basically tied to the Annex SL, because at this point, we are looking for evidence to determine whether or not the procedures and the goal setting requirements here, they've been followed through. For example, right here, you look at these documents, and then you look for this. You see? And then for communication, you look at these documents, and then you look for this. And then for operational control, you look at these documents, and then you look for this. Okay? This is basically the important part of an audit, because after reviewing these documents, it's going to help you understand what are the threats and opportunities. For example, in this webinar, if I'm going to ask all of you, can you give me a list of your legal and other requirements? You are going to see that all of you who are attending these webinars, from the list of documents of your legal requirements. Some of you, you're in aviation, some of you are in construction, some of you in logistics, operations, what you have you, okay? So that information is also going to help me understand what exactly are the threats and opportunities that you might be having in your processes. So this is now going to be the first thing that I'm going to do right here. So usually in audit, it is done in stages. So as you can see, there's this red section, the green section, and the blue section. So for me, let me say I'm conducting an audit in the blue section. So that means step number 6 and step number 7. So the first thing I'm going to do right here, I'm going to do documented information review. That means I'm going to request people or the employees who are working step number 6 and step number 7, I'm going to request for these documents right here so that I can look for this. Okay, that is going to be the first part of an audit. And basically, I'm looking for footprints here. All right. After the documented information review, now we need to create an audit checklist. Now, some of you in this webinar, you have attended our quality management audit training. Some of you have attended our safety management. Some of you, you have attended risk management. You attended different webinars for everyone who is in this webinar. So there is something that you really have to understand, that why exactly everything suddenly has changed in this webinar for IMS. Because in this audit, okay, the audit objective has changed, the audit criteria changed, and also the scope of the audit has changed. In IMS, the scope is a process, okay? The audit criteria, this is Annex SL, and also the objective here is basically capability. So once those things change in an audit, you should expect different documents to be reviewed, different questions to be asked, different observations to be made, okay? That is basically how audits are. Audits, basically, they're dependent on the scope, context, and also the criteria and also the objective. So at this point now, after documented information review, you look at and then you look for hold on that. I'm now going to show you how can we use results from documented information review to create an audit checklist. Now, what exactly is an audit checklist? Well, an audit checklist now, you still remember, let's say you want to do grocery, okay? So you can say grocery items, okay? You say grocery checklist, okay, like this. I think most of you have seen that some people, when they do groceries, okay, they might have a checklist or some form of things to remind them what exactly to do when they are doing their shopping, okay? So you might see that some people might walk around the shop with something like this, all right? So that is exactly what is happening when you create an audit checklist. So this grocery checklist right here, how is it similar to an audit checklist? Well, for starters, for you to create a checklist for your groceries, you first of all have to review what do you have in your kitchen or in your pantry, right? You have to look at what do you have and what you don't have so that you can determine what goes on the list. So that is the same thing with this IMS audit checklist. This IMS audit checklist is basically created after the documented information review. And then that's why we say documented information review is going to help me prepare the audit checklist. Okay, so that is the first similarity that we have here. Number two, when you are using an audit a grocery checklist, why do you even have it? This is so that you don't forget when you go to buy things. It's not like, you don't know what an egg is, you don't know what an apple is, you don't know what milk is, but you might forget. So that is the same thing that happens right here. And in this audit checklist, this is to make sure that you don't forget what to observe, you don't forget which questions to ask, and you also don't forget what exactly documented information to review. And lastly, if you are basically using this grocery checklist, if you see apples first, okay, before you see eggs and cheese, there's no need for you to pass the apples, only looking for the cheese and eggs, and then to come back for the apples. It does not matter which order does it go. You can even start with sugar, and then you might end up with milk, or you can start with bananas, and then you end up with wine, or start with tea, and then you end with butter. It does not matter. The goal is to make sure that at the end of your shopping experience, everything here has been what? Everything here has been ticked off. And that is exactly what an audit checklist is. You should not just wait and say, okay, while I have not seen bananas right now, so I'm going to go to the end of the aisle, collect the wine, and then I'm going to come back here. Of course, you're going to end up actually, repeating work which does not need to be done. So that is exactly what an audit checklist. It is literally the same as a grocery checklist. Now let us look into it into more detail. So the purpose of the audit checklist is to remind you what did you have to do during the audit. And what did you have to do during the audit? Well, during the audit, okay, you have to ask questions, review documents, and observe. So, however, this audit checklist should only be based on the reading from the documentation. That means what you're going to observe, what you're going to ask, and what you're going to review is based on step number one. And this is now when all of the IMS audits, they are going to have different questions and different outcomes. So this is actually, you prepare your notes in the form of a checklist, which will help you remember what you need to do during the main audit. Okay, so this is now how an audit checklist looks like. And myself also, I've even asked some other people why exactly is this called a checklist, and to this day I don't know. Because if you say a checklist, okay, it can, to me at least, it basically gives you the notion of like an idea, like it's something like this, okay? Like this is basically a checklist, like with a yes, no right here. And this has actually also led a lot of people basically to use a yes, no checklist in an audit, which is really wrong. But for some reasons, one way or the other, I don't know why this is called a checklist, but this is how an audit checklist looks like. Anyway, with that being said, this is an audit checklist, and this is going to remind you what to do during an audit. So how exactly do you prepare an audit checklist? So let us look at the components. So this is the questions, this is the documented information, the section for the audit evidence expected, and also the audit findings that should be generated. And then this is where you're going to put your observations. So first of all, let me come back here to the beginning of the webinar, okay, so that I can give you again this auditing equation so that you can what? You can follow through when I am actually doing this right here, okay? So this is now the auditing equation that I'm also going to give you so that you can also see what is happening right here. So this is now an audit checklist that you see. So as you know, we start with the documented information, okay? Documented information from step number one. So you open this document right here, and then let us now go to the objectives and then the targets, okay? So let's say we are going to copy this section right here, and then I'm going to say this is now the documented information I'm going to need right here, all right? So you might be asking, to whom exactly am I going to be sending these documents, and where is this going to be used? This is going to be used right here, ladies and gentlemen, because for me, I'm auditing the site inspection and connection and the solar generation. I'm basically auditing step number 6 and step number 7. So what I'm going to do for the duty holder or the supervisor here in step number 6 or 7 of the process, I'm going to request them this documented information. This is what I want to look at so that I can look for this. So that means I'm going to ask for list of objectives and targets for this section. What are your targets and what is the list of your targets here in step number 6 and step number 7? What do you want to achieve in quality, safety, and environment in step number 6 and step number 7? I'm also going to ask them, okay, what are your action plans? Do you have any action plans in step number 6 or 7 to achieve quality your IMS objectives, like this intended outcome? So that is basically what I'm going to do right here. So after this documented information, I'm now going to know which question to ask. So I'm going to come back here and then I'm going to scroll up, okay? And then this is now going to be the question I'm going to ask. For every question that you see here, for every document that you see here, there's basically a corresponding question for your evidence of consistency. So this is now going to be my question. Are there any objects and targets associated with your function? Okay, so I'm going to say, are there objects targets associated with, this is what step number 6 and step number 7, okay? So I'm going to say like this, okay? So this is basically what I'm going to do right here so that I can customize. The reason, okay, why I'm basically showing you this process is because when you are going to conduct an IMS audit, please, I cannot stress this enough. IMS is applied to a process. End of story. Okay. So what you need to do, or where the IMS is going to be applied, or where exactly you're going to conduct an audit, you have to identify a process. That process should have the intent to meet what has been said in the IMS policy. And when you come to conduct an audit, your job is to determine whether or not the current arrangements in that process, the framework being used here, is it capable to achieve this intended outcome. So that is exactly what I'm doing here. And since I'm giving you an example of site since ID, that is going to be my question. So what exactly about the observations? So my observations here, what do I need to observe here to gather evidence of continual improvement? I'm going to go to what we call the common non-conformities. And in these non-conformities, I'm going to gather these objectives that you see right here. So these non-conformities now, okay, this is going to be part of my observations. And when we say observation, it means that, the evidence I'm going to gather by questions and documented information review is going to tell me what has been done here and what has not been done. You might be asking, how exactly did this come around? I'm going to show you. Basically, you use a fault tree analysis or a fishbone diagram to determine this. I'm going to show you how does that work. But ladies and gentlemen, this is now, when this area that I've marked in blue here, this is now what I was talking about at the beginning of the webinar. Evidence of conformity, okay, which is this one right here, okay? And then there's now evidence of consistency, which I'm going to gather with this question right here, okay? And then there's going to be the evidence of continual improvement, which I'm going to gather by these observations. This is very important and every auditor should know. I think at this point, all of you, you understand that our team, okay, they've sent you this IMS Auditor Handbook. In these webinars, I try to avoid, because I don't want these webinars to be a sales pitch, okay? So whatever that you're going to get as part of your payment, please you check your email inbox, okay? These webinars, we promised you to attend this webinar so that you can learn how to conduct an audit. So that's why you see I don't focus on, you are going to get this, please pay, please do like that, because that's not why you attended the webinar. You attended the webinar to learn how to do these things. If you want to pay, that is okay. Or if you don't want, that is also okay. So in case you're wondering why exactly I'm not showing you these documents, etc., like that, that is the reason. I just want to focus on sharing this information with you, and then you can decide after the webinar. But with that being said, everything that I'm saying here, you can get it in this handbook for IMS auditors. So we have prepared a handbook for conducting an audit. So in this handbook now, this is now when you are going to get the audit checklist, okay, that I have used for the rest of these sections like that. It is really going to be unrealistic for me to cover all of these items in this webinar, okay? So, but the audit checklist that you are going to prepare, it is literally going to be the same way like this. So this is an example for these documents on how exactly I'm going to prepare an audit checklist for this section in this blue area. After this now, we now have to go to the audit evidence expected. Please check the auditing equation I've sent to you, okay? Now, when it comes to the audit evidence expected, what is the audit evidence expected? That is the audit criteria. That is it's literally written here, okay? All of these management system auditors will now have to use a core set. This set of these generic requirements, ladies and gentlemen, okay? It is basically those set of procedures that you need to follow. So if you're an auditor, this is basically the core set that you have to use to conduct your audit. These are called goal setting requirements. And then basically, this is now what you have right here. So I'm now going to open my Annex SL and I'm going to look for objectives. What exactly am I expected to do under objectives? So under objectives now, you can see this is now the goal. This planning phase, I have to determine if the organization looked at what, who, and how these risks must be addressed. Okay, this is a proactive approach, replaces corrective action and reduces non-conformity and later on. So you as an auditor, this is now what you have to determine whether or not this has been done. So you expect to see particular focus being placed on objectives of the management system, which should be measurable, monitored, communicated, aligned to the policy, and so on. So this, what I've marked in blue here, this is what I expect to see in step number 6 and step number 7. So this basically becomes my audit criteria right here. Okay. Now, I'm now going to need an explanation that, okay, how exactly, what to expect in the organization, if this statement is true. So I'm going to open my IMS. This is now an explainer. So this now is a document that explains to you, the auditor, it basically interprets the Annex SL. So for example, when I'm going to conduct an audit, everything that you are looking at right here, this is what I expect to see if this goal has been met. So this is like an extended version explaining how these things work. So I expect to see all of that information, okay, in these two associated records like that. So these two associated records, this is where I'm going to request for the organization. So that means when I'm going to go to step number 6 and step number 7, I'm going to request for the summary of departmental objectives and also the summary of objects and program. And I expect to see this right here. Okay, so this is now what I'm going to do. So there you have it, and that is basically how you do. So I'm going to take this document right here. I'm going to gather my audit evidence for step number 6 and step number 7, and then I'm going to compare with this audit criteria so that I can determine audit findings right here, so on to like that, okay? And then that is going to be my audit findings on that stage. So if we have more time, I'm going to give you 2 more examples of basically how to prepare an audit checklist, but please check your email inbox. You can also get the full textbook from this handbook for ISO management system audits. All the templates, we have included them right there. This is just an example of one of them. Now, I just want to, I think I've got 30 seconds or so. So I want to explain to you, like how exactly for you to really also understand, IMS application, okay? And also as further evidence for some of you, you can say, if you look at type A and type B, okay? Because as I have told you, these standards, there's so if you go to the ISO website, if you'd really like to, so this is a blog, you can go to the ISO website. It explains to you what is the difference between type A and type B management standards, okay? So what we are doing right here, as you are going to see in this blog, it is basically the type B standard. The problem that I've seen, okay, and why exactly I'm sharing this link with you is because, IMS is one of the best ways to use in an organization. But how can I put this? Okay, let us just say, okay, this is basically being used as type B, as a type B standard. What it means to have a type B standard, it means it provides guidance, okay, on the application of type A standards, okay? So this is basically like, what this harmonized structure, when you say harmonized structure, the high level structure, standards listed here is a high level structure that may contain some of the terms and definitions, particularly for organizations that choose to operate integrated management system that can be met by 2 or more integrated management systems simultaneously. So this is the information that I'm giving you, okay, because I understand some of you, you might be working in an organization where everything has been set the wrong way. And of course, in these 30 minutes, I cannot convince you that what you're doing is wrong. So the only thing that you can really see who is right and who is wrong is for you to go and read what is happening here. So what is happening when I say IMS audits, the IMS basically is applied to a system. The further evidence, you can get it on how exactly what is a type B standard and what is the harmonized structure. And that is when you are going to find yourself back right here where I am right now, where I'm using this Annex SL. But as a rule of thumb, if you are not using Annex SL for your audits or implementation of an IMS, basically that is unfortunately the wrong way. This is also been said right here in this integrated management system of these standards and so on. So if you really want to know how exactly can you apply an IMS, please research about what exactly is a type B standard and the harmonized structure like that, and you're going to find a way back here. That is also going to show you what to do right at this point. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we have looked at documented information review. We have also looked at how to create an audit checklist. Okay, I'm basically going through these sections to show you how to conduct an audit. And at the end of the webinar, I'm going to summarize everything, and I'm going to send you this link right here so that you can see how exactly to conduct an IMS audit. I'm going to summarize everything that we have said in this webinar right here. So after documented information review, okay, you now know what to look at and what to look for. You create an audit checklist, basically to see what kind of evidence to gather. Now, step number 3, at this point now, you now need to write an internal audit plan. What exactly is happening here? So in the internal audit plan, you are now communicating with the auditees like, okay, look, this is basically the results of the documented information, and this is the audit checklist. At this point now, you want the auditors to understand how the audit is going to be conducted. At this point now, as an auditor, I'm communicating with the people in step number 6 and step number 7. I want them to understand why, okay, what is the reason for me reviewing these documents? Why am I asking that question? What are these? And what does this mean to their ability to achieve these intended outcomes that you see right here? Okay, so that is the reasoning why basically I'm doing that. You understand? They need to help that, because if there's going to be any corrective action or any improvement in step number 6 and 7, that means, they need to understand how did I arrive, what kind of audit evidence I gathered and why was it so. So that is the purpose of an audit plan, is basically to explain to them how the audit is going to be conducted. Okay, and so the audit plan, I'm going to, as part of my explanation, I'm going to include the purpose, the scope, the criteria, and objectives for that audit, as well as to identify these audit dates and team members. So this is now what I'm going to do. I'm going to use this template, okay, to basically communicate with them. So this is basically an explainer document. Fundamentally speaking, this is an explainer document, okay? I'm explaining so that there's no any doubt how the audit is going to be conducted. And also, this is going to be referenced when you are going to explain the results of the audit. Now, there's basically 3 sections, okay? There's the general information, audit process, and then the evaluation strategy, okay? So the general information, it is the same thing. The audits are conducted to determine the capability of the organization to achieve its intended outcomes on IMS objectives. Actually, let me send you this as a link, okay? Let me send you this as a text, because I really want to explain something right here before we proceed. Look, if you type on the internet, let's say IMS policy, right? So this is an IMS policy for Dubai Statistics Department, Dubai Statistics Center, okay? If I'm going to conduct an audit for this organization, if Dubai Statistics Center are going to call me to conduct an audit here, the reason why I'm going to conduct an audit is to determine, okay, I'm going to request them for a process, okay? Basically, this can be customer service, whatever process they have. The purpose of this audit is going to determine the ability to achieve what you are looking at right here, okay? The same way that I'm doing for this organization. That is the reason why you conduct an IMS audit. And I've told you the reason being, these are the objectives, right? Okay, what do you know about integrated objectives? What I know about integrated objectives is that there is a set of procedures, which you need to follow in order to meet those objectives. So for me as an auditor here, since you have showed me your objectives, I'm just going to review if you basically follow the set of procedures. Okay, so that is basically the purpose of the audit, and that is basically why you are conducting this audit. And always these IMS audits, they are conducted on processes so that you determine the capability. As I said, this is basically how type B standards work, okay? Because it is basically a type B management system standard. Management system standards type B, again, you can see here, that's why they said it is basically a model to follow when you're setting up and operating a management system, and in this case, an integrated management system. So that is now what you need to do. You communicate to them, what is the scope of the management system? So the scope, again, it has to be a process. So you say integrate management system 4, and then I'm going to come here, okay? And then I'm going to say integrate management system 4, solar connection process. Always the scope has to be a process. The integrated management system does not have to be applied to the whole organization. Okay, it is basically for processes. You can do them multiple processes like that, but it cannot be applied to the whole organization. For example, okay, let me just show you how things can go bad if you want to do this like the whole organization. Look, this is the whole company. Okay, so how exactly are you going to apply an IMS to their bill payment services? Okay, it is going to be an over-designed and something that is unnecessary. You understand? Or these are the type of the services they have. So what you do in an IMS, basically here, you are selecting a service. For example, this is a service for a service guide. IMS is not applied here, okay? These are basically these different services. For you as an auditor, you select a process within the company. This is where the IMS is going to be applied. So that is going to be the scope of the management system audit and where the IMS system is going to be used. This always should be a process, okay? And then you are going to tell them the system, okay? The integrated management system consists of input processes and then the output. So basically at this point, you are making sure that the auditees, they're up to standard with you. So you tell them the inputs, these are your risks. The process is this one, okay? And then the outputs, basically, these are the outputs that they want to achieve, what they said in the IMS policy statement of intent. And then after that, now you go to the second section, and then you describe the audit process. What exactly is going to be this type? Of course, this is compliance and performance evaluation audit. Compliance, basically, we are looking because we've got a set of requirements, isn't it? And then also performance evaluation, basically evaluating the capability to achieve those intended outcomes. The roles and responsibilities, this does not change, okay? The audit is going to do the same thing. The organization, they're always going to do the same thing, and the audit team, they always say the same thing. So you don't need to change that part of the audit template. The methodology of the audit, of course, that is SP ISO 19011, the 2018 guidelines, these ones right here. So basically, this handbook is also going to help you to basically set up, manage, and implement an IMS audit program like that. And that is what you're going to use. And then you explain the audit stages. So all of these sections, okay, we are going to look at them from this point onwards, okay? From step number 4, 5, 6, we are going to be following through this, okay? And then you also include the schedule and the timetable for the audit. At this point, my job is to make sure that the people in step number 6 and step number 7, they actually understand why, how, and when, what exactly am I going to be conducting an audit, and what am I looking for. And then the evaluation stage, I need to explain my audit checklist, okay? I need to explain how exactly these audit findings are going to be generated. All of these things now. So I'm going to start off by defining the audit findings. What does it mean? And then I'm also going to give them examples of non-conformity. I'm going to give them examples of major non-conformity so that they can actually come here and they can have reference. I'm also going to give them what is going to be a definition and so on. If the organization, okay, if they agree with everything here, they are going to come back here and then basically they sign right here. So they're going to sign, and basically that is how we know the audit is on. So the audit plan now, this is now what you do as an auditor, basically to make sure that everyone is on the same page, they understand your checklist, and everything is going to go according to plan. After that, now we go to step number 4. We now need to conduct the main audit. Always remember, in audit, okay, even though we have got different contexts, different scope, different audit objectives, fundamentally speaking, an audit is simply comparing audit evidence to the audit criteria in order to determine audit findings. So the main thing here is for you just to understand what basically audit evidence is made up of. Okay, and you know that in IMS, okay, the audit evidence, it's made up of what? The audit evidence is made up of evidence of conformity, consistency, and continual improvement. You know that your audit evidence is made up of these questions, these documents, and what you need to observe here. This is your audit evidence. The audit criteria, this is what you expect to see, and then these are the audit findings. So that is basically what you're doing here. So when you're conducting your audit now, okay, this is now what you have. During the main audit, you need to talk to people, you need to look for records, observe whether everything is compliant. Why are you talking to people? Because you need to ask questions. Why are you asking questions? So that you can gather the evidence of consistency. You have to look for records. Why are you looking for records? To review documented information. Why are you reviewing documented information? So that you can gather the evidence of conformity. Okay? Why are you observing? To gather evidence of continual improvement. You see, and you're looking for red flags. Once you just understand what exactly audit evidence is made up of, then that is almost half the job. So at this point now, when you're conducting your audit plan, your audit check, your audit when you're conducting an audit, everything has to be done to the script according to what you said in the audit plan. So in the audit plan, you said the audit is going to include the opening meeting. In the opening meeting, you are going to share the auditing equation I sent to you. You are going to explain what kind of audit evidence is going to be expected, what kind of audit evidence is going to be gathered, which questions are going to be asked, documents to be reviewed, and why are you doing so? Okay. And then also after that, now you basically now start using the audit checklist for examination and evaluation. So examination and evaluation, this is now fact finding. This is now when you start gathering your audit evidence. And then after that, you basically report, present your corroborated facts, and then you end up with advising the auditee on what happens next. So what is going to happen here, we can break down a little bit to examination and evaluation. So during examination and evaluation now, what has happened? During examination and evaluation, I've reviewed documented information here. Number one. Number two, I've prepared an audit checklist. Number three, I've sent them an audit plan. Okay. And then now number four, I'm now using this audit checklist. So this audit checklist, remember, is to remind me what to do during an audit. So I'm now going to ask, basically, I'm going to start off with this documented information. So I'm going to go to my assigned area. So this is the type of audit that you might need 3 auditors, one from the red, one in the green, one in the blue section. So for me, as per my example, I'm in the blue section. So I'm going to basically ask for these documents, okay, which have already been given to me after stage 1. So objective, I'm going to look at these documents and I'm going to look for this. Okay, so you basically open your auditor work paper, and then this is what I'm going to be looking for. Okay, so let's say I see that in the first document, this is not available. Okay, which means when I looked at the objectives and targets, okay, I've realized that some employees are uninformed, the procedures are not followed by everyone, or there's no objective evidence that these procedures are being followed right here. So I'm going to come back here and simply, I'm just going to highlight it as a red. I'm going to explain this to my other auditors when we have an auditor meeting. And then I'm going to look at the minutes of objectives and targets development right here in step number 6 and step number 7. And then when I look at those minutes, I can say, well, everything here that I'm looking for, I found it. You are looking for, and I found everything I'm looking for in this documented information right here. So I'm going to say, you know what? This is cool. It is okay with me. Okay. And then I'm going to request for the list of objectives and targets. Do you have a list of objectives and targets that you'd like to achieve right here? Okay. So, and then I'm also going to look for this. So let's say I can see maybe the documentation is not controlled, but everything is okay. So again, it's going to be different color codes. It's very important for you as an auditor not to write any finding or any conclusion at this point, because at this point, you are only examining, you are gathering audit evidence. So let's say maybe these related action plans, again, I did not see them. You just have to leave it like that. And then after that, I'm now going to request basically the head of department here, or basically the people who are responsible for step number 6 and solar generation. And then I'm just going to look for awareness. I need now to know them. Are they aware of their objectives and targets? Basically, I'm gathering evidence of awareness. And let's say all of them, they are aware of which targets, they know basically what they need to achieve, i.e., That means I need to basically check if they are aware of these goals right here. So I'm going to say, okay, that is okay at this point. At this point, what I'm doing, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just giving you an example of how you do your fact finding by interrogating the system, and basically how do you generate your audit findings. So after this now, this is basically the audit evidence of consistency and basically conformity. I'm going to link up with the other auditors so that collectively we can have a brainstorming session to determine which of these red flags basically have been noted. So objectives and targets, we can say no, yes, these they reflect policy requirements, but we can say maybe they don't demonstrate continual improvement. And everything, whether this is true or false, it is only based on the information that we have here. So we can say all what we have here, basically this is a what? Minor non-conformity, and this is what? This is basically some red flags, but this is actually being done correctly. So this is now going to be an example of what you have. So this is going to be the audit evidence that has been gathered right here. And I'm only giving you one example, okay? So when you're going to do your audits, make sure that, all of these audit trails here, you're going to follow them, all right? It is very simple. It is literally the same thing that you're going to do here as you're going to see in your template. So I'm now going to compare my audit evidence. What I see here, does it match with what is happening here? The information right here, okay, is it the same information right here? So I can say as a group, we disagree. If we disagree, what does it mean? That means we are now going to come over here, okay? And then we are now going to write our audit finding as disagree. So what you're looking at here, this is basically the outcome or the 5 possible outcomes of in an IMS audit, okay? So that is basically one of these outcomes that we have here. If let's say we say it's an observation, it means the outcome is going to be this. You understand? And so you might be asking, why is it in IMS we have got these 5 outcomes? Because in an IMS, I'm going to remind you one more time. In an IMS, everything is based on what you call the what? In what we call the generic or what you call the goal setting requirements. In an Annex SO, if it is being used as a type B standard, it means that as the auditors, we expect everything. This is what we expect. So what you do right here, you are going to use a fishbone diagram. Like, okay, what are the possible outcomes of this? So the first possible outcome is that it matches. This other outcome is that it does not match. And the third outcome is that, it partially matches. Do you understand? Those are the findings. And then you further divide them into these 5 categories. That is why I said an IMS audit is different, and this is one of the differences we have. And that is also an advantage to you. Whenever anyone is going to conduct an IMS audit, these are the 5 different outcomes that you can have. Okay, so basically that is how you generate audit findings in an IMS. So whatever section that you take here, you can just come back here and you can use this basically as your what? As your area to basically make which is which. And then what you're doing here, you're basically comparing this audit evidence to this audit criteria. And then as a team, you determine whether or not this is met. So in this case now, if I say I disagree, it means that, based on the audit evidence I gathered on step number 6 and step number 7, based on that evidence, the objectives and targets is recognized, yes, to be an IMS requirement, but this is only being partially complied with, and it shows significant gaps and weaknesses. There's no adequate plan to implement this exception beyond the current level of compliance. What does this mean? Okay, this actually, it means, okay, you can tie it back to what we're saying. The main thing why we are conducting an audit is to determine capability of the organization to achieve its intended outcomes. And at this point now, I have highlighted to the authority or to this organization that in your pursuit to achieve these intended outcomes, there's something that you need to look for under this section, and then again and again and again like that. Okay, so basically that is what you do when you generate these audit findings. After that, now it's now time for you. It's now time for you to write your audit report. So your audit report now, this generally should have 3 parts. That means the general part where you have to fill out the audit scope and the audit criteria. and then you have got the audit findings, non-conformities and observations, and then also the audit conclusions, like how much the company is compliant with the IMS and how well the management system fulfills its objectives. And as you are going to see, the word objective or intended outcome is something that you're going to see a lot, because in an IMS, literally what is happening is that you have got these objectives, what you see in the IMS policy, and then you look for a what? You look for a set of procedures that you need to follow in order to meet those objectives. The same way that is happening right here. These are the objectives, or what you call the intended outcome, that you see in the IMS policy. And in this IMS policy, if this is ever going to be achieved or to come true in this organization, then I should follow a set of procedures, like that. So for me as an auditor, I'm going to gather evidence of conformity, consistency, and continual improvement in those set of procedures, so that I can determine whether or not you are able or you are capable to meet those objectives. And at this point now, I now have to write an audit report. So in an audit report now, this is the format that we are going to use. So in an audit report, we are now going to look for we now start off with the first part, the scope, context, and criteria, so that we can really explain which processes or where the audit was conducted. We are going to summarize the results of the audit, and then we are now going to go back to the clauses, okay, or the goal setting requirements, so that we can subdivide those procedures they need to follow. There are procedures that they need to follow in context, leadership, and so on. So this audit report now, again, I'm going to go back to show them, did they set up the model correctly, or are they following those set of procedures? This set of procedures, they exist in different clauses. Like in clause number 4, these are the set of procedures in IMS. In clause number 6, these are the set of procedures. Clause number 8, these are the set of procedures. So that should also be my audit report right here. So the first part of the audit is easier, because this is what we have said already in the this is what we have already said in the IMS, this is what we have already said in the IMS audit plan. So what you're going to do here, we are going to start off with the scope. This is now for Dubai operations. Let's say, for example, this is what we've done. We have looked at 7 locations where this is going to be done. Please, we are about to go to the end of the webinar. When it comes to IMS audits, make sure it is process-based, okay? Never look for IMS like for the whole organization like that. That's not how it works. This is a type B standard. When you are integrating, and IMS is a type B standard, okay? It focuses on a process. So you select a process where you're going to do those things, okay? After that, and then where am I? Okay, so what exactly is the audit criteria? Okay, the audit criteria, they literally have told you themselves that, you have to use a core set of these generic requirements, the core set of procedures, and this is basically what you see right here in the Annex SL. And then, when you go to the audit objective, this is to determine the organization's capability to achieve its intended outcomes. If you're conducting an audit, it's basically to determine whether or not what is written in the IMS policy can actually be achieved in the process in question, okay? That is basically what you're doing right there. So the result of the audit now, how can you summarize an audit? Well, you basically come over here and then you look for reasons why actually people conduct IMS audits, okay? So this is basically why you basically have to conduct an IMS audit. This is some of the few reasons why people conduct IMS audits. So you can actually use that to summarize your audit activities. So what you do, you have to turn these into statements. So IMS audits, they provide a means of confirming that the IMS policy is understood and is being implemented. So for you, you basically say, well, the IMS policy, okay, you can say is understood, okay, but it is not being implemented, okay, if that is the statement, okay? And then here now, summary of the audit, they give management, okay? So here also, okay, IMS audits are conducted because they give management confidence that the system is being implemented in the manner prescribed, okay? So you can say, so you can come over here and then you can say the IMS okay, is being implemented in the manner prescribed, if that is what you saw from the rest of the audit checklist. Okay, so that is basically how you write an IMS audit. Okay, so that is you summarizing all these reasons. Or you can even come back right here, okay, to this section on this guidance on right here, guidance on integrated management system standards. They're basically given you, or this blog right here, they've given you an overview, like an explanation, what are the benefits, etc., on like that. So the benefits of effective management, this is what they do, and something like that. So you can also use them as part of your audit, as part of your IMS audit report. When you are summarizing the audit, just look at why exactly an organization like this might need an audit, and you can just answer those questions within your summary of the audit. So after that, now you now have to start reporting. As you can see, there's clause number 4 here. You now have to report the evidence. Okay, you answer here whether basically is there conformity or non-conformity right here to these goal setting requirements, like that. So since I used the example for clause number 6, that is exactly what I'm going to give you as an example here. So you go to clause number 6 here, okay, and then you go to your IMS audit, okay, and then I'm going to select this audit question. So this was my line of inquiry. So my line of inquiry, I said, are there any objects and targets associated with stage C and stage D? Okay, that is my line of inquiry. So what exactly is the audit evidence? Audit evidence is made up of what? Of documented information, okay? And also it is made up of procedures, all right? So I'm now going to say for documented information, okay, this is what I did. So you come over here, and then these are the documents I have reviewed. So the audit report, it's basically you are now reporting on basically what you found. So I'm going to say the objectives and targets, okay? As you can see right here, this was the red. So I'm now say, when I looked at objectives and targets, what did I see? So I'm going to say, okay, when I looked at these objectives and targets, basically this is what I did not see. So I'm just going to come over here, and I'm going to say objectives and targets, okay? You have to report, and then I'm going to say, okay, you can say all employees, okay, are not informed, right? And then I'm going to say the procedures, okay? The procedures are not, you see? I'm trying to be as simple as, the procedures are not being followed by everyone all the time. You see? So this is basically what I saw when I conducted this audit in step number 6, step number 7, just as an example. And then we go on to the next one, which is basically minutes of objects and targets. So again, minutes of objects and targets, everything here was what? Everything was satisfactory. So here I can say, okay, everything here was satisfactory. Everything that I wanted, what I was looking for, I found it. Okay. And then you do the same for the list of objects and targets. Say list of objects and targets. When I was looking for this, what I saw is that the documentation is not controlled, okay, etc. like that. That is what you're doing in an IMS audit report. The report has to make sense to the people in the documentation, okay, is not controlled. So the idea here is that, the people who are working now in step number 6, step number 7, let's say you are the manager, or you are overseeing here. When you are reading this audit report, it should tell you exactly what is wrong and what is good. What is good is that you have got minutes of objects and targets, but they are not being followed by everyone. And these procedures, some employees are not informed, etc. on like that. So those are the examples. When it comes to the procedures, basically what you are doing step number 6, step number 7, I'm going to take basically these right here, okay? So I'm going to copy them as they are, and then basically these red flags, okay, which came from observations, and I'm going to do like this. If it was a green flag, like you can see here, okay, I'm going to turn this statement, and then I'm going to say objects and targets, okay, I'm going to say do reflect policy requirements, okay? And then if it was a red flag, like the second one, I'm going to leave it like that. You see, the objectives that do not demonstrate continual improvement. And then I keep on going. If it was a red flag, like if it was a green, like the third one, I'm just going to say, okay, if it was green, I'm going to say they are linked to objectives, etc., like that. You understand what is happening here? You know, an audit report, it has to be as simple as possible so that, the people who are working in that area where you conducted an audit, immediately they can see what to do and where it needs to be improved. Okay, if you tell them that your objectives, they reflect policy requirements, they do not demonstrate continual improvement, they are linked to, this is now going to give them a clearer picture on what needs to do and what to keep on doing. Okay, so, and then now the findings, I'm just going to come over here, and of course, I'm just going to select this finding, which we agreed on in the audit section, in the audit findings, in the audit checklist. And I'm going to put it over here with my audit finding basically of a non-conformity, and I'm just going to place it over here like this. So this is now the report I'm going to send basically to step number 6, step number 7, okay? And then the other auditor is going to say from step number 3, 4, and 5, another auditor is going to do the same right here. If you decide to have a combined audit report, that's up to you, but I would recommend you to write it in segments. Why is it important to write it in segments? Well, there's basically, you are going to see that throughout this process, there is basically polarization in the sense that, let's say you look at this goal to enhance stakeholders' happiness. This objective, okay, is critical happiness, okay, right here in step number 7. Okay, yes, it's important right here to design the application, but the velocity of the risk to that goal is not as high as right here. So what you need to do now, you don't have to confuse what is a priority in step 1 to step 3 might not be a priority to step 6 and step 7. So the best way is basically to give them audit reports in 3 different sections so that the people in each section, they can actually focus on their own area, and also that is going to help to make your audit report customized. You understand? Because you cannot tell someone who is responsible for solar generation about engaging with consultants, okay? Or telling someone who is working in the design department about site inspection or something like that. So what you need to do here, you basically have to segment your audit. This is what I've seen to work a lot, especially in my audits. So after that now, let us now go to this section. After writing your internal audit report, you now go to the 2 last stages, which is basically what you are now going to write your corrective actions now, requesting the organization to resolve a non-conformity. At this point, you have to initiate the process of resolving the non-conformities that you have found. So that means whatever non-conformities I saw right here, I have to inform them what to do, with the idea of steering them back to the set of procedures they need to follow so that they can get the correct model to use when they are setting up. That is the main thing here. So the document that you use is this one. You start off with the clause where exactly the non-conformity originated from. So from this example, this was from clause number 6. So you're going to say this is basically clause number 6 like that, so that the people in this department, they are really going to really know what exactly are there. I think the correct word here, not department, the stage of the process, okay? So the category, let's say this was a minor, okay? This was a minor non-conformity, okay? And then the area or the process, okay, where that non-conformity happened. So let's say this is specifically in stage C, okay? Because it has to be specific, okay? If you tend to be specific in your areas like that, the more also it's going to happen, mean to the people. Statement of the non-conformity, what exactly is it? So the statement of the non-conformity, it should always be basically a red flag. Why is it so? Because a red flag, it basically represents the procedure, deviation from the procedure, okay? So that is basically a statement of non-conformity. So the statement of non-conformity, you write the red flag. There are no detailed means of achieving objectives and targets that are given in step number 6. And then after that now, you are now going to say, okay, what were they supposed to do? What kind of audit evidence did you expect to see? So you come over here and then you say, this is basically basically what I expected to see in these associated records. So this is going to be the first one, and this is basically coming from the Annex SL, okay? So you say this was basically the requirement like that. And then you now have to explain what exactly are they supposed to do, okay, in order to have it. What does the detailed means of achieving objectives look like? So you open this standard right here, okay, and then you scroll and then you look for exactly what did you expect to see. So to achieve a set of objectives, management program should be established which translate goals into concrete action. So you as an auditor, you did not see a stepwise action, there's no result requirement, responsible people, etc. on. Definitely, this is not what you did not see. So you should actually make sure that this department here, they actually know that this is what you were looking for. Okay, so you put that description right here. It is very important for you to be as clear as possible so that there is no any confusion whatsoever, so that the organization or the people in that section, they can really understand what was supposed to be done. Actually, you're going to see that if you're a good auditor, okay, the organization, it benefits a lot from audits rather than implementation, okay? Because if you basically give them a clear-cut non-conformity report like this, not only are they going to know what went wrong, but also what they need to do. And then you have to end with objective evidence. Objective evidence is to support why do you say this requirement was not there. So for example, you can say my objective evidence is because I did not see any list of objectives and targets. So you say, when I looked for the list of objectives and targets, what really happened? So you said, when I look, for example, you can say, when I looked for the list of objectives and targets, okay, these procedures, the employees are not informed, there's no objectives that they are being followed, etc. These are the three things I did not see in your minutes of objectives and targets. And then you just write them like, all of these basically, I did not see them. So that is basically my objective evidence. This was no, like that. And then at this point now, that is how you write a non-corrective action request. And then that is the end of it. After that now, you now have the last step now is now conducting the follow-up on corrective actions. So the auditor needs to make sure that these non-conformities have been resolved. So what exactly happens? What happens now at this point now is that the auditees, the people who are working in step number 6 and step number 7, okay, they are now going to have the root cause analysis. So they are going to have root cause here, okay, and they can use, let's say, a 5 whys method, all right? So this is now what they do. They now need to look for reasons. Why is it that we don't have detailed actions to achieve objectives in step number 6? So as per their root causes, let's say they can say the reason here was because there's no roles and responsibilities being allocated. So they are going to have a correction. So this is called a pilot solution, okay? It's called a pilot solution, or you can call it a trial, okay? A trial method, okay? So here they say we are going to give roles and responsibilities. Now, after that, now you as an auditor, you should now come and conduct the audit now. In fact, you have to follow up and conduct kind of a small audit, which is going to focus only on non-conformities. And you should use the internal audit techniques. That means your job as an auditor here is basically to approve the pilot solution that indeed this pilot solution is capable to basically resolve this non-conformity. This pilot solution, again, it is capable of making sure that this goal has been achieved. These are called goal setting requirements. And then once you approve, this now becomes what you call the approved solution, or etc. like that, approved by the auditor. Okay, and basically that is how you close out an IMS audit. So that is basically all what you need to do when you are conducting your IMS audit. And that actually brings us to the end of all those 7 steps. So this is now what we covered in this audit, and basically this is going to be part of your CPD activities, okay? I would like you to basically look at the what? I want you to basically look at these sections. If you've got any questions on that list that I've sent to you, please make sure that you can just reply here, and then I'll be more than happy to answer them. But to summarize an IMS audit and so that we can wrap up this session. Be careful not to skip any of the 7 internal audit process, because we are basically following the guidelines in ISO 19011-2018 guideline. Okay, and then also you have to thoroughly perform document review so that you prepare yourself for the audit. Documented information review, as I said, this is basically the first part of an audit, and this is the most critical part. This is when you look at and then you look for, so that you gather evidence of conformance, but most importantly, so that you understand the context of the organization, which is going to help you to customize an internal audit checklist. And make sure you create your own internal audit checklist. There's no such thing like getting an audit checklist from a friend or anything like that. You basically have to follow the structure that we have given you, but make sure that you customize your questions, you customize your documents, and also that is going to help you to gather relevant audit evidence. The main problem in audits, especially nowadays, is basically irrelevant audit evidence. The type of questions or the type of documents some auditors are reviewing has got nothing to do with actually evaluating performance or actually, finding what is happening there. So that is the unfortunate part. When you're conducting an audit, the audit evidence, it has to be relevant. Otherwise, it is going to be a wasted effort. So that's why you see most audit programs, they are ineffective. The systems, they don't improve, the accidents, they continue to happen. The systems basically, it's like a regression other than an improvement. It is because the audits, they're actually doing a disservice by gathering irrelevant audit evidence. And that basically can be stemmed down to your audit checklist. So your audit checklist, it is basically at a crossroads whereby you can do the right thing or everything can actually go to waste. And then you should make your internal audit report short and precise. Make it short, customized to each stage of the process, and also make it precise so that the people who are working in that stage of the process can really understand what to do and what is expected of them. All right. And then also, most importantly, make sure that you initiate all corrective actions and make sure that all responsible people, they'll be able to see them. All right. And then after that, now consider your job done only after you have only after you verify that corrective actions have been taken like that. So that is basically the presentation on this IMS audit. Thank you so much for taking time to attend this webinar. I really appreciate you attending.